So our topic of the day, we are looking at some aspect of our risk management. I took this decision to shy away a little bit on strategic management that we'll be looking at, topic on risk aspects. Later, we are going to look at that of corporate governance. So today we are looking at risk management, some aspect of risk management. So are you free to go? Okay. So to start with, let's look at the definition or a simple understanding of what risk management is all about. Risk management is highly unavoidable risk. Risk is highly unavoidable part of business. And daily operation simply means that what we call risk management is part of our day-to-day business activities. And it is inseparable from our business because there is no way organization or individual will carry out one business activities or the other that element of risk will not be attached, no matter how simple it is. Even if it's also trade collecting from farm to retail price to our final consumers. We have instances whereby it might be last month that will stop us, it might be police. We can have some eggs that will break in transit, or by the time we get home. We can have incidents of giving credit facilities to some of our customers that will default or fail to pay as at when due. So risk management is highly unavoidable. Hello?
We can hear you, sir.
Hello, we can hear you.
So I said as a result of being you can hear me now. Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, sir. Only that there's a breakage in your audio and the screen is not displaying.
Yes. Okay, sir. But it's okay now. Okay. All risks must be well managed by the organization because a poorly managed risk will have greater consequences on the organization. Poorly managed risks, it will have greater consequences on the organization. And the very reason why you have it there that poorly managed risks may result in financial losses to the company. A poorly managed risk, it will result in financial losses to the organization. In some instances, it can cause what we call reputational damage for the company. A poorly managed risk will cause reputational damage for the company. Apart from causing reputational damage for the company, a poorly managed risk or business risk can cause operational damage and losses. They can lead to loss of finance, loss of investors. It can cause a lot of litigation problem and many more. And that's the one reason why company must ensure that any risks attached to their business, they have to identify the risks, know how they can manage the risks before it generates to major problems. So in managing our risks, what are the risk management process that we must be knowledgeable about? This risk management process is the next topic that we are going to have on risk management. We are going to make it to be elaborate. We discuss on a furious and strategic process through which organization can manage all their risks that is attached to their business. The risk management process comprises of 1, risk awareness. And that risk awareness should be something that is encompassing. The awareness must cut across all major management levels in the organization. Both our strategic keepers, the top management that comprise of what have you, they must be aware. Our middle level manager, lower level manager, our support staff, everybody must be aware of the risks attached to the nature of our business. 2, there should be risk identification and assessment. That risk identification and assessment means that we must prioritize the possible risks that we are likely to face in the course of doing our business, and what are their relative impacts on our business. The third stage of the risk management is that you must put in place a risk control measure. And that risk control measure, we must realize that it is not all risks that we can control. As a result of that, we apply preventive measure in most cases. And those risks that we cannot control, to put in place a corrective measure, we can transfer those risks. Example of transfer of risks is probably if the risk is insurable, we can insure it, underwrite an insurance policy for such a risk. So the peradventure, if the risk now occur, the company will be able to have a cover-up. The insurance policy will be able to indemnify and compensate the victim. It may even be the company. That is what we call transferring of risks to the insurance company. The fourth process is monitoring and review. Monitoring and review, because the risk management process requires a proactive, swift, and continuous monitoring, assessment, evaluation of the likely risks that we can experience, the risks we are facing presently, and other portfolio of investment that the company are into. We should be able to know the consequences of the risks that is attached to our business. So in the first process, there should be constant monitoring and review. And the constant monitoring and review will require continuous evaluation of the outcomes of the likely risks and the improved strategy that we can put in place. That improved strategy even tells us that the risk management policy of the company should be enriched at all times. We have to ensure that we enrich this risk management policy. So in line with that, we have what we call ISO 31000, that is 31000 framework. So it's a subtopic on its own that I'm going to teach you in our next class. But in relation to that ISO 31000, we have what we call ISO 31000 7 R's of risk management. The 7 R's of risk management is only talking about how our risks can be effectively managed as an individual or corporate organization. And what are the things that we have to take notes, just like the risk management process. So the first thing to take note under the ISO 31000 7 R frameworks is 1, recognition of risks. I know we have said that you must be aware of the risks attached to our business. All our staff must be aware of this. And at the same time, we must recognize and identify the risks. We must identify and recognize the risks. That is the first thing that we have under the 7R risk management framework. Recognition of the risks. Apart from the recognition of the risks, the second one that we have is ranking of the risks. There's a need for us to rank the risks as an organization, individual businessman, because failure to rank our risks will put us into problem. Company must ensure, directors must ensure that they rank the risks in order of importance, in order of consequences, in order of exposure. So this one will now help the company to use their discretion to know the limit of their risk appetite. What do we call risk appetite? Risk appetite means the limit of losses or the limit of risks the shareholders, the board of directors, and investors can bear on any investment policy that they make. Some companies, they have what we call high risk averse. Any company or individual that have what we call risk averse, they are the companies or individual that want to take minimum risks. They don't like exposing or investing on any business that have high level of risks. Whereas we have individual or corporate entity that have high risk appetite. They are ready to spend and invest on any business that is attached to high risk. So far, it is a profitable business. They are high risk bearer. So the ranking of risks will assist us to know the level of risks attached, our risk appetite, risk averse level, and what the decision of the company will be. The third one, under the 7RS risk framework, is response to high impact risks. What should be our response? Okay, to high impact risks. Our response to high impact risks, I can see someone raise a hand now. I'm listening, sir.
Yes, sir. Can you please work on the screen, sir? We are not even seeing what you are talking about.
You are not seeing it again? Okay, let me share, please. Thank you, sir. Hello, can you see the slide now?
Yes, sir. Yes,
okay,
can see now.
So what we are, this is where we have ISO 31000. We call it 7 R's of risk management. The 7 R's of risk management, they are one of the underlying fundamental knowledge that we must have in risk management. We have said risk is unavoidable. It's part of our daily business transactions and what have you. We have talked about the risk management process, which I said we are going to make to be elaborate in our next lecture on risk management. So the 7 R's risk management inform managers that they must, 1, have recognition of need. And the recognition of need means risk identification, risk awareness, and evaluation of risks attached to any investment policy. So the second one, I said the ranking of risks. The ranking of risks means that we have to rank the risks in order of priority for us to be able to know those ones that are high impact risks, low impact risks, minimal impact risks. So the ranking of risks will help us to be able to know if the risks are the one that the company can bear. Because we must not invest in any investment that is above the risk appetite of the company. So I inform you that the risk appetite refers to the minimal level of risks or losses that the company can bear. It can be 1% for some company, 2% on any investment policy, or 3%. Whereas we have some individuals and corporate organizations that they are high risk bearer. They don't shy away from business risks, so far it is profitable. We have so many companies, multinational companies like that, individuals like Dangote. It showed us the level of risks he took to ensure that the refinery business is success. He even said that didn't mean the refinery business collapsed. And with the frustration he get from the NNPC, he said, I was dead. Meaning that thing, the investment will have taken its life, probably through depression. A lot of banks in both Nigeria and overseas will have taken over his business activities. But he borrow money here and there. That is a high risk ventures. Thirdly, there should be a response to high impact risks. The reason why we are saying is that any business that is attached with high risks, then it's an high impact risk. If we give us on the risk management map, red, is that how you see it as red, or you see it as a red amber? Anywhere you see red on any investment decision, that means the level of risk attached is high. So what should be our response to high risk? Are we to bear it? Are we to avoid it? Should our company transfer these risks to the insurance policy, or we should pen the investment decision? There should be a swift response to that decision. We must not delay or postpone the decision. That's what the number 3 is telling us. In number 4, we have risk treatment. Under the risk treatment, we have 40 there. Are we to tolerate the risks? We tolerate the risks if the risk is as low. Low means that if the risks have low level of occurrence, and if the risks occur, it has low impact. That is what I mean by low. Are we to treat the risks? Meaning that the risk is something that we can manage and monitor, or we should transfer the risks. If it has high or low level of occurrence or high impact, if it occurs, we can transfer it to insurance policy, or probably we terminate the investment decision. That's what we call 40 of risk management. At the same time, we must ensure that we look inward to resources control, because we must not put in place or accept any investment risks that we don't have the resources, manpower to control. And the amount of money or the resources that we are using to control these risks must not be too high than the actual effect of the risks. So what I mean is, if the risks eventually occur, the impact of this is that probably we lose about 10 million. We must not use 25 million naira to control our risks, while the losses we are envisaging is 15 million. We are now using 25 million to control it. That is not a good risk measure control. And at the same time, reaction planning can be avoided. It can be avoided. It is more good for the company to have a risk management committee, risk manager, internal auditors, all the directors, and all of them to be part of this committee to ensure they minimize the risk exposure of the company. And in doing this, we must not put in place a reactive planning. I will advise that the company put in place a proactive planning and a contingency plan. So at the same time, we have to ensure that all risks are reported. Reporting of risks, monitoring, and review of risks. So this 7 RS risk management framework help companies a lot. It helps individuals like us, small, medium-scale enterprises, and whoever that is involved and in business activities. And the 40 of risk management that I told you in number 4 is that we can tolerate risks if it is low impact, low level of occurrence. We can treat it, we can transfer it, and at the same time, we can terminate it. We avoid it totally. So having looked at that, what do we call residual risks? Residual risks. The residual risks implies the post-risk control measure that the company might likely face or experience, and which can be high or low. I say that again. Residual risks, it means it implies the post-risk control measures that the company might likely to face or experience, and which can be high or low. So the residual risk simply means post-risk control measure, meaning that after we have put in place a risk control measure, some other risks that we don't plan for, or we don't envisage, or we do include as part of our risk management control presently, and which can occur as a result of unforeseen circumstances. Those are the things that we call residual risks. You can see post-risk control. We have put in place a risk control measure, but this kind of risks can still occur, and we don't have control over them. So typical example of this for us to understand what we mean by residual risks are production shutdown. We don't plan for production shutdown, but the production shutdown can come due to something like government decisions. It can come as a result of internal crisis, strike, or the community where we are operating complain to the government that we are polluting the environment, or our production activities in one way or other is endangering their lives. So production shutdown can come in many forms. The workers can be complaining for improvement in working condition, increase in salary. If these their needs are not met, it can degenerate to partial closure and unrest situation in the company. Another example of residual risk is environmental pollution, consumerism, or litigation. Consumerism, when we have group of aggrieved customers, individuals, the government, media houses complain about the activities of our company. It might be on our product, mode of our service delivery, or whatever. So we don't plan for this kind of risk, and it can occur. Supply chain disruption can occur. It's a residual risk. The supply chain disruption can come. It might be from insecurity that occur in the nation. It might be as a result of the crisis in importation. It might be as a result of a strike. You can see occasionally people that are into the refinery business, be it onshore or offshore, they experience this, that they say the tankers drivers are sacking. They said they want to strike tomorrow. When Dangote prevented all these drivers to join unions, you can see that this one leads to supply chain disruption. And that sector, they are very, very powerful. Residual risk can come as a result of natural disasters, like the case of COVID-19 that we experienced in late 2020. And it can also come as a result of staff injuries. We have put in place safety measures. We have insured all our staff. That does not mean that our staff cannot have injury. That's the meaning of residual risk, the post-risk control measure. We have put in place fire extinguisher in strategic places. We put in place fire disaster alarm and so many measures. That does not stop us from experiencing fire incidents in the company. That's the meaning of residual risk. Again, what do we call risk hedges? It's an interesting topic. Risk hedges. Risk hedges means that the firm's actions that offset exposure to risks and in the process cause incurring of new risks incidents. Risk hedges again means what? Firms. Firms is the same thing as company, organization. Firms' actions that offset exposure to risks and in the process cause incurring of new risk incidents. Example, divestment decision. Divestment decision. We abandon or withdraw a product from circulation. Or we engage in what we call downsizing. We close down some outlets because presently they are not viable. Because the environment where we are selling that market location is not promising. But to our surprise, after 3 or 4 years, that area where we shut down our business, sell all our assets, it now become a hot place that a lot of companies are now moving in. Diversification decisions too has to do with a lot of risk hedges, merger and acquisition, and outsourcing policy. So these risk hedges, for you to know the meaning of that risk hedges very well, because some people might not still understand what we call risk hedges. I said the firm actions that offset exposure to risks and in the process cause incurring of new risks. Let's say, for instance, apart from this, divestment decision that I cited as an example, diversification decision, merger and acquisition, and outsourcing policy. A very living example is this. Both Muslim and Christian are fasting now. Soonest, very soon now, Easter is coming in. Very soon, Ileya festival is coming in. You know, during Ileya festival, for example, we all knew that there is always high cost, exorbitant cost of buying rams, all in the name of observing the normal religious doctrines of Muslim. They'll be selling some rams, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000. I know how much we buy rams. Means I buy expensive rams in Ileya. Our sweat capital and earned money we use it to buy that ram. because of our commitment and religion to try. So some people now, we are in February, and let's assume that Ileya is in April or some few weeks after April. They might decide to buy the ram now in order to offset the risks and exposure to buying the ram at exorbitant costs. They will now have in mind that no matter what, the amount of money it will take them to feed the ram between now and April is going to be up to 100,000 or 200,000. Rather than buying a ram of 500,000, 700,000, or cow of 1.5 million naira, they can buy it now. So they will still get it at a reasonable and cheaper price. So we are buying it now to offset risks of high price. But in the process, we bought it in February, in March. By middle of March, the ram or cow died. That is what we call risk hedges. Mean in the course of preventing a risk, we are exposed to another risk. We incur another risk that we don't foresee. That is the meaning of risk hedges. So what are the benefits of risk hedges? The benefit of risk hedges is that it increases cash flow. Let me increase my speed. It increases cash flow. 2, it reduces business risks. 3, it reduces business losses and lower our operational costs. So what are the demerits of risk hedges? Lack of expertise. Some companies engage in this without having skill, experience, expertise within the company, and they are not ready to pay external consultants to advise them. So this one can have negative or adverse consequences. So another one is high hedges costs. If peradventure we expose ourselves to another risk, look at that example of the ram. Now we have to buy another ram. Already we are close to Ileya. So unforeseen incidents can occur. So these are some of the demerits of risk hedges. So what are the types of risk hedges? I just give you one example now. So another example of risk hedges under the types of risk hedges are 1, forward contract hedges. Hope you are following, please. Forward contract hedges. Example, the stock of dollars against fluctuating and increasing rates. Because of the persistent increase in dollar to naira exchange rate, some individuals might decide to buy dollars and stock it in large quantity, thinking it will increase. If peradventure, Nigerian government put in place a control measure to cushion against this persistent increase and the dollar rate fall, you sustain losses. It's a risk hedges. Is that understood? So we have so many examples there that we can see. Okay, let's move to risk appetite. Risk appetite. What do we call risk appetite? I've defined this about 2 or 3 times today. Risk appetite means it is defined as the limit of risks that the company and management is aiming to accept on any investment decisions. We take that again. Risk appetite. It is defined as the limit of risks that the company and the management is aiming to accept on any investment decisions. That means the limit of losses. The limit of losses that the company consider bearable. And I've told you, in some companies they have high risk appetite, some they have low risk appetite. Those ones that have high risk appetite, they can finance a investment that have high level of risk exposure. But those companies or individuals that have risk averse, they always prefer to invest in any business that the level of risk attached is low. So going forward, we must know that risk appetite varies in different companies, and it is determined by the following factors. So what are the determinants of the risk appetite? 1, personal views. The personal views of the shareholders, board of directors, and the rest. 2, shareholders' view. 3, the board of directors' view. Another determinant of risk appetite of a company is the organizational structure and influence. It's one of the major determinants too, that will determine whether we should embark on high risk investment or low risk investment. So another one, let's add one more, is the nature of the investment decisions and the importance. So the importance will not tell you what significance is this investment, if at all we are ready to invest in this high level of risk business. Will they increase our return on investment, return on capital employed? Will it give us more goodwill, corporate expansion and recognition, competitive advantage? Will it expand our portfolio of investments and give us opportunity to diversify into another profitable and attractive industry? Again, what percentage of gains or losses are we likely to experience? So that is what we call risk appetite. Hope the risk appetite is understood before we move forward. I just need yes or no. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. God bless you. Okay. God will continue to enrich our knowledge. So the next one is risk assessment. The risk assessment, we mentioned it the other time we are talking of the risk management process, which I said in the next class, I'm going to make the note to be more elaborate. So the risk assessment refers to the analysis of the nature and effects of investment risks. And this our risk assessment can be achieved via one, risk quantification. We quantify it in terms of benefit and losses. Two, risk rating. Risk rating means we quantify it in terms of high risk, low risk. And at the same time, risk sensitivity analysis. Under the risk sensitivity analysis, we are going to have that too in our next note. That is when we are going to talk on the risk map and risk ALAP, as low as reasonable profitable, and risk dashboard. So we discuss on that. So our assessment of risk require risk quantification, risk rating, and risk sensitivity analysis. So the risk-based approach just summarize everything. What we call a risk-based approach is summarize everything about risk assessment, risk appetite, risk edges, and the rest. So what do we call risk-based approach? One definition. So we proceed. The risk-based approach, it explains the risk management process and require risk evaluation, risk exposure analysis, risk policy, and risk appetite acceptable by the board of directors. So that's the reason why I say it covers everything that we have discussed so far. That the risk management, the risk-based approach explain the risk management process, and it requires risk evaluation, risk exposure analysis, the firm risk management policy, and at the same time, risk appetite policy that is acceptable by the board of directors. And for you to know the importance of this risk management-based approach, look at this segment. The risk-based approach, it stresses the need to accept low risk decision and limit firm exposure to risk. So the risk-based approach stresses the importance of accepting, always invest in any business that have low. That low, I've told you the meaning. Any business that have low probability of occurrence and low impact. If the probability of occurrence of the risk is low, and if peradventure the risks occur, the effect should be low. That it is the best for the company to accept this kind of investment. And at the same time, we should limit our company exposure to risks. Our company exposure to risk means that we should put in place a low risk appetite. It's not at all time that it's good for company to go into high risk appetite. So after that, we look at reputational risks. Reputational risks. The reputational risks, it is caused by the company activities and that of its shareholders. And that of its shareholders and stakeholders, and which can spoil the goodwill of the company and relationship with the public and investors. So with that simple definition, you will know that what we call reputational risks. Reputational risks are the risks that damage the goodwill, reputation, image of the company that they have built over years. And the simple definition is telling us that the reputational risk can be caused by the company activities. Company activities, like that thing that we told you, like lack of compliance, tax evasion, environmental pollution, hoarding of goods. It can be caused by companies' activities. It can be caused by the stakeholders' activities, their employees' activities, and it will damage their goodwill, that is image or reputation. It will not only damage their goodwill, what happened again? It will affect their relationship with the entire public, investors, and the government. So that's the more reason why we must ensure that we avoid reputational risks, because the company will suffer the damage. It will even affect their brands, their brand image, brand value, brand acceptability. Customers' patronage will be affected. Because anything that causes reputational risks, we are in a digital era now. It will be reported in all the media. And this one will cause a lot of problems. It will weaken the growth of the company and their competitive advantage. No individual will buy their shares. So what are the factors that can cause reputational risks? Reputational risks can occur due to the following acts. 1, engaging in ultra-vires business or businesses. When a company engages in ultra-vires business, it means that company engaged in a business that are not registered for. They might see it as a sudden opportunity, believing that they want to quickly invest in it, make some money, after that they go and register it. When you engage in any business that is not, you don't register with CAC, or it's not part of your scope of operation, your vision and mission statement, when you are caught, it can cause reputational risks. 2, ill-health corporate governance. Poor governance in the organization by the non-executive directors and executive director. If the company is poorly managed, lack of disclosure and minimum, it can cause reputational damage for the company. Non-compliance with laid down rules and regulations, laws, cause reputational risks. Tax evasion, I've mentioned it. The sale of obsolete products and unwholesome products. Sale of expired products or unwholesome products that are not fit for consumption, or they are not produced in a hygienic manner. When caught, it's reputational risks. We have some instances where some people will be caught producing wine, drugs illegally. Some, the drugs are expired, they have to change the packaging, put another packaging, change the manufacturing date, the expiring date. When you are caught, it attracts litigation and brings about reputational risks for the company. So what are the effects of reputational risks on the company, on the firms? Effect of reputational risks on the firms. 1, it will cause loss of investment opportunities. 2, it will cause loss of profits for the company. 3, it will cause damaged goodwill. Number 4, it will result to loss of potential investors and existing investors. Because some of the existing investors might get annoyed because of the damage you have done to the company in terms of reputation. Some might, in annoyance, sell their shares. That's what we call shareholders activism. At the same time, reputational risk will cause high staff turnover. Majority of the workers will leave the company because they can't be proud of a company that does not have goodwill, and it will cause loss of competitive strength. So having looked at that, the syllabus says we should understand the meaning of business probity risks. What is the meaning of business probity risks? This business probity risk is more or less synonymous to reputational risks. It's one of the things that is causing the crisis of reputational risks. So the business probity risks is very, very simple. We just need a one-line statement or two to understand the meaning. So what is business probity risk? Probity means honesty and integrity. Honesty and integrity. So another name for probity is honesty and integrity. So business probity risk is the risk of losses that occur from a failure to act in an honest way. That's just the answer. When a director of a company, CEO, the board of directors, the managers, even our salesmen, when they fail to act with honesty, they acted in a dubious way to sell to customers or to make secret profits. It robs on the integrity of the company. It will drag the image and the reputation of the company into disrepute. So lack of ability to act with transparency, honesty in our dealings with customers, that is what we call business probity risks. Even when a company sells adulterated products, obsolete products, smuggled products, or a company engage in what we call, what do we normally call this thing? Hoarding of goods in order to call artificial scarcity and increase the price. We have committed business probity risks. Because when the government out of it, or the trade association, or professional association, you'll be sanctioned. So acting with honesty, integrity is the key to successful business. Anytime companies are lobbying for a contract, project, or award, either through competitive bidding, if you engage in these activities of bribing to get the contract, it's a business probity. That is the meaning of business probity. Bribery is part of it. So what is the dynamic nature of risk assessment? Dynamic nature of risk assessment. I've told you, anywhere you see dynamic, something that is changing over time, it's not static and it's not predictable. Dynamic nature of risk assessment. Organizations differ in how exposed they are to changes in the internal and external risks. That means the risk exposure of company, internally and externally differs. Some companies face high risks, while some face low risks. So that's what we are saying. So the risk dynamics now is not telling us that as a company, we must ensure and know that the business environment where we are operating is dynamic. The business environment where we are operating is dynamic. It changes over time. Due to these persistent changes, we have to realize that we too, our risk management policy is being evaluated at all times. We must ensure our risk assessment policy is situational. We have to look at the relative changes in the business environment to know if there will be need for us to adjust our risk management policy, if there will be need for us to increase our risk appetite. Because the business environment at times, due to the dynamism possible changes in the business environment. Because the business environment can be static, turbulence, complex, it can be stable, it can be unstable. So as the business environment changes, then the degree of risks that we are facing changes too. So the dynamic nature of risk assessment tells us that our risk management policy should be made flexible in order for us to accommodate possible changes as a result of changes in the business environment, government policy, and many more. So the identification of risks that we mentioned earlier on, so I expatiate it here in line with the syllabus, that identification, assessment, and measurement of risks. The first one, risk identification, we have discussed on this about 2 times. Let's still look at it. Risk identification is the initial stage in a system of risk management. So the first step in the risk management policy is what we call risk identification. That's what the statement means. A company needs to understand what risks it faces, both in its environment and market. What are the risks we are likely to face in the environment? What are the risks we are likely to face in the market where we are operating? What are the risks we are likely to face from our operational activities? What are the risks we are likely to face from the government in the industry where we are operating? What are the risks coming from the competitors, the customers, the intermediaries? All these things are what we call risk assessment. So the risk assessment is the responsibility of the management, the managers, the directors, the internal auditors, and to mitigate against these risks and for good risk management identification. Some companies normally engage the activities of external risk experts or auditors. So this helps us for us to be able to identify, assess, and manage our risks. Apart from that, many large companies set up risk committee to identify risks. These are committees of managers from several departments or functional areas. For effective risk identification, assessment, and evaluation and control, companies set up a risk management committee. And what are their functions? I've embedded the functions here. Each committee is responsible for reporting on a particular categories of risks in whatever geographical areas or portfolio of investment they give them to evaluate. So they will report each risk exposure, how we can manage it, and many more. So what are the impact of risks? Because all these risks that you are seeing, we have been saying that the risks cause reputational damage, it will affect the operational costs and activities of the company. So you must realize that the risks that we are talking about not only affect the company alone, the risk has impacts on the shareholders. You can see, I put it here, the impact of risk on the stakeholders, impact of risk on the employees, impact of risk on the host community, impact of risk on the government. So when they ask you that you should discuss on the strategic impacts or what are the impact of risks on the stakeholders, this should be your answers. The impact of risk on stakeholders, on the employees, on our customers, vendors, you just mentioned it. This is 5 or 6, we are okay. You can proceed with the next question. So the strategic impact of risk on the stakeholders, what are the impacts? The impact of risks on the stakeholders is that anytime the company ran into problem of high risk or reputational risks, it will affect the investments of the company. If the stakeholders in question are shareholders of the company, there is possibility that at that period, their dividends might be low, or probably they are not paying any dividends because the company sustained losses as at that time. Apart from the dividends, anytime company ran into problem of risks, and that risk has to do with reputational risks, it will affect the goodwill of the company. And as a result of that, the stakeholders will affect, it will affect the attitude. Because the goodwill, the image that they have built over years has been affected. For them to redeem this image, it might take another years if they have the opportunity. It will affect their attitude, it will affect their behavior, and it will affect their investments. Apart from that, what are the impact of risks on the employees? Some of the impact of the risks on the employees, I've highlighted them. Let's quickly look at them to save time and proceed fast. One, it will cause threat to health and safety of the workers, because it can lead to loss of job if the company runs into problem as a result of inability to manage their risks. Apart from that, on the employees side, risks that affect the company can lead to loss of their job. Their job may be threatened. Their job may be threatened. And it can lead to high staff turnover too. Lack of promotion and the rest, because the company is trying to restructure to get it right again. So what are the impact of risks on the investors? Impact of risks on the investors? Because the reason why the investors buy shares is to trade the shares. They invest in the shares for them to make profits. And when they now buy the shares, the company where they buy the shares from ran into problem. That will affect the share price. It will affect their dividends. There's likely that they might lose their money that they have invested in the company. And in the stock market, if the company still exists going forward, their shares will not be attractive to the public. What are the impact of risks to the creditors? The creditors can be individuals, it can be financial institutions, it can be private investors. So the main risks to a company creditors and suppliers from the companies are these. One, the company will not be able to pay back the amount is owing them presently, because the company has become technically insolvent. They are not financially buoyant. The company is financially handicapped, and as a result of that, that company will not be able to pay back now. If there is any debt equity or whatever that they have signed before, and they have run into this problem, then automatically the company lack liquidity, no capital to pay. So that will affect all the companies and individuals they are owing. Two, the company will stop buying goods and services from them. And there is opportunity that if this one persists and they have not paid the money they are owing, that runs millions or thousands, this can bring litigation problem that they can sue the company and take them to court. And that one will further cause what we call reputational damage the moment it appears on the media. And that's one reason why we have to ensure we manage risks very well. So what are the effects of risks? The company risk policy or investment risks on the community and the general public. The effects are many. Let me summarize it. Let's look at the first effect. Number one is that the consequences for the country of a decline in business activities and profits of a company due to recession, especially when the company is a major employer. So what we are saying is that when the company runs into problem as a result of risks, that risk can come from the economy risks, social risks, risk edges, residual risks, or whatever. The country will suffer it. It will affect the economic viability. But one way or the other, this company too that ran into problem, they are major employers of labor, they are paying tax, they are contributing to gross domestic nature of the company. So anytime the company is sick, our economy is sick. particularly if the companies affected are 1, 2, 3, 4. The government feel the impact, the society feel the impact. Two, the health and safety risks will occur from failure by a company to supply goods that meet with health and safety standard. Let's assume the company now is a pharmaceutical company. And it's one of the leading pharmaceutical companies in Nigeria or in overseas. And presently, the company is in a state of a big crisis. It will affect their operational activities, ability to export, import, produce, and the life of some people are attached to it. Is that understood? So the risk effect is not limited to the company. That is what I can want you to know here. That risk effect, the adverse effect of risks affect the community, the society, the staff, the stakeholders, the shareholders, the investors, the customers, the supplier is affected. Also, the risk has effect on the government. It has effect on the government because the government too generates revenue in form of tax and other dues from company. So if the companies are not ethical company, if they are not viable company, if it's a bank, the bank is at the verge of collapse or distress. Will they be able to pay tax? The company leverage on the support from all these companies to create employment opportunities and to industrialize the economy. So if the companies run into problem of breaks in the course of their operation, automatically the government will be affected. And that's the reason why you see anytime a bank runs into a problem of government, they always give them support, particularly if it's an infant industry, because they want to support them to prevent total collapse. And in many times like that, several banks will come in the banking industry to save a bank that's at the verge of total collapse, either through break bank options, merger and acquisition, or total takeover. So to the customers too, we should realize that the company's activities create a lot of risks for the customers, either in the area where they produce unwholesome products or as a result of operational errors or system breakdown, because the life of some people are attached to it. If the company closes down, the business of some individuals, customers are attached to that. If the company have failure in operation or total liquidation or losses, we must realize that all our vendors, investors that come in form of customers too will be affected. Major dealers will be affected too. If the company faces a lot of problem in the areas of their supply chain activities and importation of raw materials, many customers will be disappointed. So the activities too also affect the business partners of the company. There are many. So let's quickly go to risk mapping. Risk mapping. What do we call risk mapping? So this risk mapping, let me tender apology here, because ordinarily I meant to put it in simple diagram. Even in the diagram, this is what we are going to see there. But the diagram will only indicate maybe a column where I will tell you accept or reject. That's the only difference. But I promise in our next topic on risks, I will put the diagram on risk mapping. So risk mapping is just a risk policy that aids the decision of the company on whether to manage risks, accept risks, avoid risks, treat risks, or transfer risks. That is risk mapping. It is synonymous to that 4T of risk management that we started with. Treat risks, tolerate risks, terminate risks, or transfer risks. It's the same thing as risk management mapping. So this risk management mapping It just guides our investment decision on what to do, even without asking one or two people. Once you categorize the risks and you put them in mapping, this is what you do. Look at the risk mapping. Number one, high impact, low probability. High impact, low probability. What is the meaning? Let's go back to that high impact. That high impact means when the risks occur, the impact on the company will be severe. Like a company that is producing chemical now. If there's a leakage in one of our processing tank, and that chemical now spread to the community, to the society, you know, it can damage the lives of many individuals in the society. Apart from the damages it will cause from the society, society will sue us, individual will sue us, agri-citizen will sue us, media houses will sue us, government will sue us, some NGOs might come in, that the activities of our company has endangered and claim the lives of many people. So high impact risk means when the risk occur, the impact will be severe, it will be high, consequences will be much. So high impact and low probability. So low probability means that the probability that the risk will occur is low. It might not occur now, it might take years to occur, it might not even occur at all. But the more we see that the effect, anytime it occurs, is high impact, low probability, what are we going to do is to insure the risks. It is better we undertake insurance policy or find a way of insuring the risks, so that when it occurs, the insurance company can indemnify the individual affected and our company too. Look at the incidents of the fire disaster that occurred in Lagos Island in late December that claimed the lives of many senior managers and many more. Another one is high impact and high probability. The probability of occurrence is high and the impact of the risk is high. This one requires urgent action. And if the company has not commit themselves, the more it is high impact and high probability, we can terminate. We can avoid such a business and decisions or investments. Very, very dangerous. We transfer it or we can terminate it. But this is very, very interesting. And we advise the company and individual to embark on this investment decision. Low impact, low probability. The probability of occurrence is low and the impact is low. So we can monitor and accept this risk, accept it. The next one is low impact if it occur, low consequences, and high probability of occurrence. The probability that it will happen is high and the effect is low. This one too, we can put in place a control measure, ensure we do constant risk identification, risk assessment, risk evaluation. We put in place risk management committee, expertise within and outside. And all the board of directors will be part of it in the risk management committee. This one will help us to manage this because the investment is profitable and the effect, the negative effect is low and the probability of occurrence is high. So this is okay. This is what we call risk mapping. The risk dashboard is the same thing as risk mapping. The only thing that we have under the dashboard, risk dashboard indicator, is that anywhere you see red color, I've mentioned it in the course of our explanation. Anywhere you see red color, even in risk mapping, if you see red is danger, is a critical investment decision. You must not overlook it. You must take holistic approach to look at it, whether it's a thing that you can manage, it's a thing we can terminate or avoid or transfer. Because that red means high probability of occurrence, high effect, impact. So when we see amber means a moderate risk. Red means high risk. White green means low risk. So under the dashboard indicators, it's always good to go for green color. Anywhere you see red, amber, avoid this and go for green. But if peradventure, the amber is profitable. And the board of directors, they are broad-minded shareholders and investors. They said they can take minimal risk appetite. So far it is profitable, you can go for amber. But the first thing that you consider in your risk dashboard is always good to go for the green color. Low probability of occurrence and low impact. For red means high probability of occurrence and high impact. So disclosure and transparency. Risk management require complete and total disclosure in order not to ruin the continuous existence of the company. So for us to achieve disclosure and transparency, the board of directors, risk management committee, be it internal and external, must maintain two-way communication with stakeholders. So this one will aid effective feedback mechanism and collaboration in mitigating against risk effects. Two-way communication is needed to achieve disclosure and transparency. 2, provide regular CSR, environmental sustainability goals, and accountability reports. At the same time, you must engage community, staff, and investors in decision making. Because risk is unavoidable, all the stakeholders must be involved, depending on the nature of risks that we identify. Also, we use digital platform to build trust. How can we use digital platform to build trust? By engaging the community, investors, and the rest to know about our risk management policy, risk management efforts, our risk management appetite, what we are doing to manage, treat, transfer risks. So in a way, we are educating the company. We are informing them in the area of risks. Our management, we don't take it lightly. Risk audits. So what do we mean by risk audits? Risk audits require continuous identification, verification, that is assessment, and recording of risks. Risk audits also cover the measurement and analysis of risk indicators. Measurement and analysis of risk indicators. So what are the risk indicators? Risk mapping, risk dashboard, all these low, high, low, high, red, amber, green. They are risk indicators. So once we see these risk indicators and we have identified them, so what is the next thing? We identify, we assess, we review, and report. It's a collective effort. And this one we avoid putting our company into problem. So what is the meaning of ALAP? I mentioned the word ALAP the other time. It has just one small line diagram like this. The line diagram, but the line is not, the diagram is not compulsory under ALAP. So what we have to know is that, what is the meaning of ALAP? ALAP means, A there means as, L low, A as again, R reasonable, P practicable. So the full meaning of ALAP is that ALAP means as low as reasonable, practicable. So this ALAP is telling us that any investment that we want to do on behalf of your company or your own personal business, let it be investment that is low and very reasonable to embark upon and manage. As low as reasonable, what? Practicable. You can see, ALAP says, achieve the lowest possible residual risks at reasonable cost. Don't embark on high risk appetite, please. So apart from that, promote cost-effective risk management. We should minimize the cost of managing risks. And that's the more reason why we are saying that go for green, go for amber, go for low. go for ILO, it will reduce our cost of managing risks and the effect of risks on the company. Allah, as low as reasonable, practicable. So having a look at that, so what are the roles of board of directors in identifying and assessing risks? The role of the board of directors in identifying and assessing risks. This one just says that what are the roles of the board of directors in risk management? That is the meaning. One, the first role they have to play is this: identifying key risks. That is identification of risks. Identification of risks. So that means the board of directors must work hand in hand with risk committee, internal auditors, and other members of the company. Risk committees for them to be collectively identify risks and see to how they can manage it. Number two, the board of directors is responsible for assessing risks and for designing and implementing risk control. It is the duty of the board of directors to identify, to assess risks, design risk management policy, and implementation of risk control. That is number two. In number three, it is the responsibility for the board of directors to monitor the effectiveness of risk control and keep risks under review. You must not just fold arms and sleep. Now, there is no while we have established risk committee. It is their responsibility to look into that. Now we have a relief. No, it's require what we call a constant review, and it require measuring the effectiveness of this risk control measure, how effective it is. What are the things that you have gained? And these risks must be constantly reviewed. And that's the reason why you say that keeping risks under review. Anything can happen within seconds. Go to stock exchange and see. Additionally, the board of directors should report regularly to the entire board on risks and risk management. Regular review, reporting of risk management effort that you have made, the internal control they are put in place. All these things have to be reported. So next we look at the roles of the risk manager. Role of the risk manager. The company and another entity might appoint one or more risk managers. Most companies ensure they have a risk managers in place. A risk manager might be given responsibility for all aspects of risks. But when you give all responsibility to the risk manager on all aspects of risks, it will make their work to be cumbersome. We subject them to a lot of stress too. And as a result of that, they might be underperforming. So what companies do is that they have committee, subcommittee, the internal and external auditors to support them, the board of directors to support them, the managers to support them, rather than vesting all the responsibilities to manage the risks to the risk manager. Alternatively, risk manager might be appointed to help with the management of specific risks. So that way, then to be more functional, proactive, and resource-oriented. And what are the specific risks that we can give them? Such as, one, insurance. It might be insurance of the company, entire operational activities, the staff and minimum. Insurance, health and safety risks, information system and information technology risks, human resources, financial risks or treasury risks, and compliance risks. Companies, all their memos within and the rest, before they take any decision, they have to ensure that that memo pass through the legal units of the company to look at the legal implication of their decision, of their memo, of their communication, of their products. So the risk managers are expected to give expert assessment on risks, information, and advice, and give us information about risk awareness, risk exposure. That is their function. And they have to encourage us that we have to be knowledgeable about all these risk mapping, categorization of our risks, and they give what we call risk reporting. I expatiate some of their functions here. Okay, let's look at this. Apart from the compliance rule, we are informed that a risk manager is not a line manager and is not directly responsible for risk management. Rather, the role of the risk manager, what is this? His role is to provide information about risks, assist and advise on risks, and to improve risk awareness within the company. And at the same time, to encourage the company to adopt a sound risk management practice. So, therefore, the role of the risk manager might therefore include helping with the identification of risks, assessment of risks, provision of risk tools. Another function that they perform here, collecting risk incident reports, risk incident reports. So this report we have to give them. They will act on it and give us expert opinion on what the company can do. So with this, we have come to the end of our lecture today. I'm so happy that we digress a bit to aspect of risk management today. And I'm hopeful with this one, we collectively agree we can look at another aspect of risk management next week, rather than looking at strategic management. If you don't look at risk management, we can just shift a bit to look at corporate governance. So with this, we have come to the end of our lectures today. So thank you. I appreciate your time, commitments, and efforts. God will count your effort resources.
Amen.
So we meet
Thank you.
next week. So the provider is displayed. I think I used Mr. Idris, what is it called? Laptop. It's not my own laptop that I use. If you see any profile, that's not my picture. Maybe in our next class, I'll be able to show you my picture. So enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you so much. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye for now.